It's always a delight to be anywhere in the perimeter of Steve Sutton. He has a fabulous, wicked sense of humor, and so I love being with him whenever I can. And I'm so glad, Ashley, too, that you were up here this morning. Minnesota girls are knocked down beautiful, so, and you got a chance to see that with Ashley. We have a real liberal from Minnesota, Garrison Keeler, who says that Minnesota is a state where all the women are strong, the men are good-looking, and the children are above average. And I think Ashley is all three of those put into one. So, Ashley, thank you for those comments this morning. I'm especially delighted to be able to be here today. I did have the chance to spend, I think, a couple of nights here one time. I rented sleeping quarters downstairs when I was here in Congress. I'm very frugal, you might say cheap, Republican, and so I had the chance to be, what was it, $20, I think, to be able to stay here a night. So when I was here raising all the gazillions that I needed to raise to run last time, we thought we could cut expenses, so thank goodness you were all here so I could use you as the hotel room. Mine somehow became the third most contested race in the country last time around in 2006. There's 435 seats for Congress, as you know, and mine eventually became the third most competitive race in the country. And more attention started to be focused on our race, and eventually the Democrats spent $9.3 million all totaled against me. For a state like Minnesota, that's real wampum, I want to tell you. That's major money, and we had to somehow figure out how to raise all total $5,140,000, so that it's not even close. And as Stephen said, we are a way liberal state, so much so, don't take our word for it. Bill O'Reilly said that the Star Tribune is the most liberal paper in the United States, and that's just not even the half of it. It is an extremely liberal terrain, but you know, that's a target-rich environment for us, and it's a great place to start to bring conservatism. And if you have a good sense of humor, and if you enjoy being engaged, you can have a lot of fun doing this in Minnesota, especially if you have very thick alligator skin, and that's what you learn to develop very quickly when you're in the state of Minnesota. And now we've come upon an issue that's really a lot of fun, and that's dealing with the light bulb issue. But as we are here looking at the corner of the 2008 election, I'm just extremely grateful that Morton Blackwell, Helen Blackwell, have had the vision that they have had to create the Leadership Institute. And of course, you are just head and shoulders above any other organization because you have Steve Sutton here at the organization. I have seen his organizational skills firsthand. He is A+, and you are one lucky organization to have him because you are creating the movers and shakers that the rest of us are going to need around the country this year. You know, it is historic this year in 2008 as we're looking at the election because I believe that it is only once since the Second World War that a party has held the White House for 3 consecutive terms. So we have an uphill battle, but we have a tremendous asset in that our opponent will be either Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. And that is great, great news because either candidate is imminently defeatable, even though you have a press that worships at the altar of one of these candidates. And now Hillary, for the first time, knows what it is to be a Republican, don't you think? She's now, for the very first time, fate has thrown us, as conservatives, a few gifts, and internal strife, if you haven't noticed, is beginning to plague the Democrat Party, which is giving us a great sense of joy, and they may be breaking out in hives, but we are having a great sense of joy because we saw that Hillary was claiming as First Lady that she was in the midst of battle, and she had to overcome sniper fire as she got out of a helicopter, and she was forced to run head down without sans helmet for cover to her waiting motorcade. But unfortunately, as you know now, she was greeted by a little girl with flowers and a poem, and Chelsea was there, and her hair wasn't messed up, and it wasn't exactly the same story. Now, Hillary said that this was just a very simple mistake on her part, and of course, you know her penchant for truthfulness. This has to be true, but most recently, she attributed this error to her lack of sleep. And this just shows one more difference between the First Lady and the former President, Bill Clinton. After a night of no sleep, Bill never had a hard time coming up with a believable story. So we'll see how this goes for the First Lady. And, of course, on the other side, we have Obama, who is in a lot of hot water because of the comments that were made by his pastor. And, of course, his pastor's comments aren't the issue. It's the radicalism of Obama that's the issue. He was one of the most radical senators in the state of Illinois when he was state senator. National Journal calls him the most liberal senator here in the United States Senate. There are comments to say that he's moderate to Bly. But the things got really bad for Obama when he did reveal that he called for Don Imus's firing, and he was asked to explain that inconsistency between now him sitting in the church with his pastor and his calling for Imus's firing. And Obama said it was very simple. When he called for Imus to be fired, he didn't realize that his pastor's sermons had been recorded. There you have it. But what I want to talk to you about today is the singularly unusual symbol of this entire battle, and it is the light bulb. And you may have heard that the wonderful American light bulb, something that Thomas Edison gave us some years ago and has worked so well for this country and for the entire world, is now the new symbol for America's ideological war. And indeed, this debate, and excuse my pun, it is shedding great light on the fundamental differences between the left and the right. Tell me, when you're talking about light bulbs, you have a target-rich environment again for humor, because Congress has just banned for what for years has been the item of choice for every American, and that's the light bulb. In 2012, I'm not making this up, the light bulb is outlawed. It is verboten. It will now be contraband in this country, the incandescent light bulb, and all Americans will be forced to choose one light bulb. It kind of sounds like the Soviet Union. You get one choice on the shelves. You get the compact fluorescent light bulb. This is not an exciting new technological breakthrough. Many people don't realize the carbon fluorescent light bulb has been around since about the 1930s. It's just that none of us have wanted to buy the thing. It's not better, it's not safer, it's not cheaper, but it is the choice of Democrats in Congress. And the incandescent light bulb is going to be replaced because freedom has now failed the Democrats. Big Brother is their faithful ally. They believe that the fluorescent bulb is not only better for our environment, it's the remedy to our energy shortages. And they are going to force every American to use these and purchase these whether they would like to or not. It doesn't matter that the CFL is 5 times more expensive than the incandescent bulb and will prove to be a tax on the poor. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the carbon fluorescent light bulb doesn't fit a lot of your household fixtures at home. Too bad. Do you find the light bulb harsh or unpleasant? Too bad. Do you find that the pigtail-shaped light bulb is not aesthetically pleasing when you look at the thing hanging out of your ceiling recessed lighting? Not the Democrats' problem. As Hillary Clinton used to say, it's not my problem that you're an undercapitalized business. Are you worried about the dangerous mercury that is contained in the light bulbs? Deal with it, says Congress. And Congress has also decreed that the Earth now is in mortal danger if we don't dramatically cut our carbon footprint. Are you unconvinced that they are really that much more efficient? And would you want Congress to create new energy and build refineries and nuclear power plants? Now, that may be an idea now, to actually increase energy as opposed to reducing demand. Too bad, Democrats say. It's not up to you. It is not up to the free market because Big Brother will make the call. What's next? Will Congress control our thermostats? Gee, I think that's even been talked about on the left coast, if I remember. Will they be telling us what kind of cars we can buy? That's around the corner. And how many hours that Motel 6 will be able to leave the light on? That may be the next thing. That is why I introduced the Light Bulb Freedom of Choice Act. That is the name of my bill, the Light Bulb Freedom of Choice Act, because it will give Americans back their right to choose the light bulb of their choice. There was a time, only recently here in America, where freedom wasn't such a controversial choice in this country, but lately it is under vicious attack. Let me tell you just a few things about this carbon fluorescent light bulb. First, there's the issue of mercury. Not only that, I was on radio shows back in Minnesota this last week, and I had electricians call me up and tell me not only is there mercury, between 3 to 6 milligrams of mercury per light bulb, There's also arsenic contained in the light bulb, and there's lead as well. Now, do you recall all of these environmental radical fundamentalists who go like screaming memes at the thought of a trace of mercury in a fish somewhere or in a lake somewhere, or of arsenic or, God forbid, lead paint chips falling into the hands of an unsuspecting child? They're always beside themselves when these come up, but now all of a sudden that's gone away. You can have arsenic, you can have lead, you can have mercury in a light bulb and have it in a home near children, because environmentalists have decided that the sky is not falling when it comes to these three products once they're contained in a carbon fluorescent bulb, but they can't have it both ways. They want to have it both ways. They can't have it both ways. They are now forcing us to put dozens of these bulbs in our homes, in daycare centers, and senior citizen centers, in public schools. The mercury also requires special disposal procedures, and it requires elaborate action in the event that a light bulb breaks. Let me give you one example. There's a lady from Heritage Foundation who came up to me when she heard that I was sponsoring the Light Bulb Freedom of Choice Act, and she said, her name is Danny, maybe some of you know her from Heritage Foundation, and Danny said to me, you know, Michelle, over the weekend, I broke one of these carbon fluorescent light bulbs at home. The kids were chasing around the house, tipped the lamp over, the bulb broke. So she said, I was afraid because I knew they contained mercury. So I called 911. This is a true story. They told me to call poison control. So she called poison control. And they said, did your bulb break on the carpeting? And she said, no. And they said, that's good. We're glad to hear that, because if it did, you need to cut out the carpeting and throw the carpet out because of the mercury content. She said, no, I vacuumed it up with my vacuum cleaner. And they said, oh, no, that's bad. You'll have to throw out your vacuum cleaner. I'm not making this up. She said, throw out the vacuum cleaner. Yes, once you bring the mercury into the vacuum cleaner, it hits the motor, it vaporizes, and then you continually have mercury coming out through the vacuum cleaner. So she said, well, then should I have swept it up? Oh, no, no, no. You can't use a broom to sweep it up, because the moment the light bulb hits the ground and hits room temperature, mercury vaporizes. You can't see it. You don't know where the mercury is. Well, how do I clean this up, she said. And so they told her, you take wet paper towels and then you get on the floor with shards of glass everywhere and try and pick up the shards of glass, or sticky tape and try and pick it up. But oh, by the way, make sure you open all the windows first, get all the kids out of the house, get all the pets out of the house, because for at least 15 minutes you have to air out the room. She said, you are kidding me. This was her story, and this was her interaction with the light bulb. And she thought to herself, it's already done. I've been in the room. I've been on the phone for this long with this conversation trying to figure out how to take care of the light bulb. I've already inhaled, and my children have already inhaled this stuff for 15 minutes. Think of this. 3 weeks from today in Fairfax, which isn't far from here, in Fairfax and Arlington, which is where I believe we are today, school children 3 weeks from today are a part of a project called the Bright Futures Project. Let me just quote to you from an article that came out, if I can find it real, here it is. It's a commentary that came out in the Examiner. And this is by Chris Bronlick. And Chris says that 3 weeks from today, the Bright Futures Project will occur. 167,000 light bulbs will go home in Fairfax County, one bulb for each child in the school system. 18,600 light bulbs in Arlington, one for each student. And this is their announcement. Our students will help create a bright future in Northern Virginia by educating themselves and the public about the benefits of switching from incandescent light bulbs to the far more energy efficient CFLs. Well, the other thing they don't tell you is that the school is going to sell these bulbs and make a profit of $1.16 per light bulb per family. Now, this is progress, actually, because the public school system is learning about free enterprise. So this is actually progress in my mind. They're going to sell you the bulbs, and again, they cost 5 times more than the other bulbs. Again, they contain toxic mercury. Let me go on to read. According to Fairfax County, disposal of intact carbon fluorescents. Now, this is assuming they haven't broken yet. If you're disposing of an intact bulb, it will be managed through the Fairfax County Household Hazardous Waste Program. Residents may bring their used CFLs to either of the household hazardous waste facilities located in the county. But this isn't exactly simple because they don't tell you that Lorton's site is only open 3 days a week for 16 hours a week total. The Fairfax site is open for 4 days for a total of 23 hours. So not exactly convenient. So this is a new student math project. Now students will have to figure out how much gasoline will it take to throw out your compact fluorescent light bulb. Students will be able to compute the miles from their home to the disposal site, the gallons of gas consumed, and the air pollution created to throw out your CFL light bulb. Now, Fairfax claims that a growing number of retailers are going to accept these CFLs for proper disposal. So students called stores to find out. 2 Home Depot stores said, we don't have a program. The customer service agent at Lowe's said, we could bring in the CFLs, but they'll just throw them in the trash. So how many light bulbs are tossed every year, and how long will it take before mercury becomes a potential issue in landfills? Much less an issue for children for child safety. You know these things are going to be breaking. Now this is what's interesting on the website of the Bold Futures, the public school website. It says, quote, no child may take bulbs home in a backpack or on the bus because light bulbs carried in backpacks tend to break, and when bulbs break, they become dangerous. Now this is really a funny project when you think about it. And whether or not a person wants to purchase a CFL light bulb, they can. They've had the choice for decades. But now Congress has made the choice for you. And that's what it all comes down to. Because their inspiration for dealing with energy is really Jimmy Carter wearing sweaters and turning down the thermostat. And that could be the 1970s way that they want to revert to go back to the future to deal with energy, when we are sitting in this country on a veritable treasure trove of energy. Energy costs should be the least of our problems in the United States. We could do like France, and we could have 80% of our power come from nuclear-powered energy. Or like Japan, that has 100% of its power come from nuclear-powered energy. So we could be building nuclear power plants, which we haven't done for 30 years in this country. We could be building more refineries, permitting refineries, so that we could be refining more oil. There is nothing evil about oil. Can anyone explain why somehow the environment is harmed if we extract oil from the sand fields of Saudi Arabia, but somehow we're going to rape and pillage the earth? We go up to Anwar, which is in darkness 58 days of the year, and we get oil from the Anwar region. I am told that if we extract only 20% of what we know off the coast of Virginia in petroleum, that we can totally displace what we import from Saudi Arabia in a given year. We have one of the largest known reserves of natural gas off the coast of Florida. China knows about that. They are in a contract with Cuba now to extract reserves off of the ocean floor for their own use. China is going after energy. India is going after energy. Only in the United States of America, where Democrats now run the show, are we going after the incandescent light bulb. This is the new future that lays before us, and I think we can rock and roll and have just a tremendous time this fall just with this issue alone, with the light bulb and energy. Because believe me, in Minnesota, we just added yesterday, the Democrats in Minnesota just added a 2-cent tax increase on purchase of price of gasoline. Well, that's going to work real well now when you look at the price of gasoline, and they're planning to have additional increases before the election. I think this is the kind of an issue that could have the potential, if we play this right, to sweep us back into power. This is one of many, but it's just a humorous example of the Democrats' view of freedom in the world, and it doesn't match that of normal Americans. So thank you again, Leadership Institute. Thank you for allowing me to come this morning. And together we're going to work for greatness, prosperity, and what the American nation was founded on. Stephen, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Q&A? Sure, yeah. Good morning. We'll open up for questions. Yes.
With your sense of humor, with your enthusiasm, you can inspire and should inspire our Congress. We need your help. We need to get rid of the earmarks as well as the caucuses, because there's no provision for them in the Constitution. But if you will work on the earmarks and put a moratorium on that for the rest of this year, divert those monies to be used to help and support our troops and our casualties so they can be rehabilitated. Will you please address it?
On earmarks, I took a pledge this year for the moratorium on earmarks, as did Congressman John Klein from Minnesota. We've had quite a few members that have signed up to do that. And of course, we have John McCain, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton, who have also signed up to take a moratorium on earmarks this year. And we thought a few weeks ago that Nancy Pelosi was about this close to saying no earmarks. And as a matter of fact, she may, at the end of the year, not put any earmarks in, depending on how much of a political issue this becomes. So I encourage all of you, continue to write letters to the editor, continue to call into radio shows, and demand no earmarks for this year. We take a lot of heat for it. I'm getting constant heat back home, and I'm getting rampant letters to the editor going in my local papers ripping on me for taking the moratorium pledge on earmarks. So I'm getting a lot of fire directed at me. This is my first re-election bid. This is very, very tough re-election. I won with 50% of the vote this last time. And so if you don't think I'm a target, I'm a target. And so this was a tough pledge for me to take, because I have a lot of people who love pork back home, and that's not the pork producers. I'm supposed to be the pork producer for all of them. But they're very upset about it. I'm taking a lot of heat, and in my office we're working overtime for people. But I think this is a good place for us to be with the election, because I don't think the American people like the idea of having to finance teapot museums, for instance. That was in the last bill, that we had a teapot museum. I voted against the transportation bill because there were $3 billion of non-transportation related earmarks. Now think of that. $3 billion. For those of you who are in Arizona, they built a new beltway around Phoenix some years ago, and that was $1 billion for a beltway. You can actually get something for $1 billion. They may not realize that under the dome here in Washington, that $1 billion may not go very far, but actually when you get out in the hinterland, $1 billion goes quite a ways. So that's why I voted against that bill. But that's where I'm at. I've taken the moratorium on earmarks. Yes.
Do Congress people ever sit back and say that when it comes to legislation, less is more? And
Never. No.
maybe they should spend more of their time getting rid of some of these laws that inhibit personal freedom.
I can just tell you that is not the direction that Congress is going. It's a little frightening when you're over there. And I told my husband, we went on a walk this weekend. We're married 29 years. It'll be 30 years this September. And he's just a marvelous man. We wouldn't have had our kids or our business or any of our success if it wouldn't have been for him. And I was telling him that I feel like the United States is no longer sitting on a strong cement foundation. I feel like we are sliding on ball bearings right now as a nation, because freedom is that imperiled right now. It isn't just this silly, outrageous, ban your light bulb nonsense. This is done. This is not a proposal. This is done. They have already banned your light bulbs. As of 2012, you will not be able to buy them. So this isn't just a joke. This is done, and most of the American people don't realize that yet. They are so far gone over there right now. They have no concept of freedom. They want to give up the sovereignty of this country. So we do have a North American Union where Mexico, Canada, United States are one nation. We give up the dollar. We have a new currency called the Amero. That's the direction that the United States Congress is going right now. They have no concept at all of parameters of constitutional jurisdictional limitations. Not just the legislative branch staying the legislative branch, or the judicial branch staying within the confines of being the judicial branch. They are all over the boards. Because when you no longer constrain yourself or tie yourself down, as Jefferson said, by the chains of the Constitution, anything's possible. And at that point, that's when I see our country rolling on ball bearings. We're at a very precarious state right now, and that's why it's terribly funny, but it's terribly serious. Because literally, we may be the break in the chain of 230 years of unparalleled growth and freedom. And even my children, who are range in age from 26 down to 14, even in their generation, there is the possibility that we could lose freedom in their generation. It's that close. So for that and for a million other reasons, I mean, get me started on Social Security and Medicare. I did a study. I was at College of William and Mary. I did my postdoctorate degree in tax law down there. And I did a study. I had a baby born in '87, and I did a trajectory on what his generation would pay just in Social Security costs. Just Social Security, not Medicare. And I'll give you the nutshell is that his generation will have to pay 25% of their income, all things being equal, just for Social Security. That doesn't include Medicare, which, of course, as you know, far outpaces that. And now Congress put into place the Medicare Part D program. And that eclipses Social Security. So we are headed for bankruptcy in this country. And we have this very short window of opportunity. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer in a brown dress standing in front of you, but we have this very short window of opportunity to deal with these issues, and they're over there banning light bulbs. So we have got to get a grip on reality, realize what's at stake, or these beautiful young people like Ashley that are here in this room, they are not going to have what we have. So this is serious business to me, deadly serious, but at the same time, it's hysterically funny. So we need to go ahead and take our opportunities when we can. Yes?
Thank you for your focus on freedom. That's what I push in the halls of Congress myself. In terms of the...
I should have known with that hat.
Thank you. In terms of the building support for your concept, it seems like a public service announcement that would describe, and they should have it today, obviously, or yesterday for your friend at the Heritage Foundation, to show a public service announcement saying what to do if your CFL breaks. It would seem like the average person watching would go, holy smokes, I've got kids, I don't want to be anywhere near that.
Oh, absolutely.
So therefore, you would build a lot of support saying, what in the world, at least you could have parents saying, I don't want it in my home for children as a safety issue. And all we have to do is have a public service announcement, which is paid for, I believe, by the radio and TV stations themselves, would help you build support for what you want to do to overturn this nonsense.
I think it's a great idea because, of course, you know, I'm terribly interested in it and want to make sure more people get information. And as I was at home on the congressional district work period this last week, people just went out of their mind when they found out about it. I did all sorts of media back home. People had no idea, of course. Members of Congress didn't have any idea that we had outlawed the light bulb. And so once people found out, they were outraged, and that's when I had electricians calling in to me at radio stations and telling me not only that, but there's arsenic, there's lead. They also told me a lot of houses have built, fancy dimmer systems into their house, paid a lot of money to put dimmer systems in. Do you know that these light bulbs won't work in the dimmer systems? So here you have this fancy dimmer system, and the CFL won't work in it. But you can go out and buy a special CFL for a dimmer light. You know how much those light bulbs cost? $80 per light bulb. $80 per light bulb if you want to put it into your expensive system. So, again, this works in Al Gore's economy. The other thing is Ted Poe, congressman from Texas, came up to me and told me that, do you know that every bloomin' CFL is made in China? Every CFL has made in China. So this is a full employment act for Chinese laborers, probably part of the slave labor camp, to produce more CFLs for Americans to buy. I told you about the arsenic, the lead. Let's see. Oh, the other thing is, Ted, we've got to buy a couple of these CFLs and read the packaging, because if you really want to laugh, do that. Because Ted Poe told me when you read the packaging, it said to dispose of them, you're supposed to take them, presumably intact, put them in a plastic bag. Which, now, think of this for a minute. The environmentalists hate plastic bags, because plastic bags apparently don't degrade for something like 1,500 years in a landfill. So, but the CFL says dispose of the CFL in a landfill in a plastic bag. So you're supposed to put this bulb with mercury in it and arsenic and lace. You put this in a plastic bag, and presumably the plastic bag won't have a leak in it. So you're hoping for that it doesn't have a leak in it on one hand, so that the mercury doesn't get out. But on the other hand, this thing isn't going to degrade for 1,500 years. So you've got the gasoline to get this to the landfill, because you're not to put it in your trash. You're to take it to a landfill in a plastic bag containing mercury, arsenic, and lead. So that's the environmentalist answer to saving the environment, is putting more mercury, lead, and arsenic and plastic into the landfill. Here's the other thing. When I was thinking about it this morning, when you go to buy a home, are we now going to require a disclosure statement about whether or not you've exploded a light bulb in your home or one is broken on the floor? Because no one will know. It's invisible. You won't know if there's mercury. Or will we now require that you have to have a little, like a Geiger counter thing, and go into somebody's house and check it out to see, oh, they didn't tell us. They broke a light bulb over here in the corner. There it is, mercury in the corner. We don't know what this is going to mean. So that's why freedom of choice is such a beautiful thing, and why William F. Buckley told us he would much prefer to be governed by the first 100 names in the Boston phone book than by the 100 members of Congress, because you can trust normal people to make good, normal decisions. So are we about at the end of our time, or how are we doing? Oh, okay, no, go ahead.
I wanted to say that President Bush obviously signed that bill.
He did. The president signed that bill, and I disagree with the president on that. I disagree with what he wants. And McCain, I agree. Well, that's why you find a lot of people. That's why you find dispirited people on our side. But think of Ronald Reagan. Think of who was president when he was running for president, and think of the people who were running the party at that time. And he would put himself in the midst of the fray at the worst possible times in the time of our country politically. This is not a Republican year. If any of you haven't noticed it, this is not a Republican year, but this is the time. This is the time to put ourselves in the middle of the fray. And for House Republicans, right now, we are outraised 30-1. Well, so what? So what? We just get out there, do what we have to do, raise our money, just work that much harder. I mean, I had $9.3 million spent against me, and we were $5,140,000. But we had a better message. We had a far better message. Freedom is a lot better message than slavery. Wouldn't you agree? That is a much better message. Wanting to live in prosperity versus the caveman. I mean, just last Saturday night, the liberals' answer was shut your lights out from 8 to 9 o'clock. Did you know about that? There was the Earth Day celebration. Everybody was supposed to turn out their lights and sit in the dark last Saturday night. So, of course, in our house, we turned all the lights on, turned up the TV, put the stereo on, said, come on, kids, let's have a party. This is their answer to turn us all into cavemen. But think of this, even cavemen were allowed to start wood fires and put wood ash into the atmosphere and sit by a fire. They had to sit by the dark. I think that the American public would prefer to have their lights on, and we're going to turn the switch for them. So thank you again. Thank you, Leadership Institute.
Michele? Michele? As a token of our appreciation, I'd like to present you with an attitude card.
Oh, thank you. For the ethics law, I could go to jail for this.
No. I think you're okay. We invite everybody interested that would like to have a tour of the building. Dana Parrish is going to provide that, and she's coming up here right now if anybody would like a tour. Please join us on Wednesday, May 7th for the next breakfast where Congressman Roy Blunt will be speaking. And one other announcement, the Leadership Institute has finished their 2007 audit and 990 preparations. Those reports are on our website. If you want to go to our website, and if anybody here would like a hard copy of our audited financial statement, you can come to the 5th floor and come back to my office, which is right above where I'm standing right now, and I'd be happy to give you a copy of our audited financial statement. We don't have copies of the 990 yet, and it may not even be on the because it's still in final review. But if it's not on the website, it'll be on there in a couple days. So anyway, thank you very much for coming, and please join us next month.